All right, welcome to Halitics. There we go. Got the audio going. Started a little bit late because we were having some tech issues, and I just realized the same problem was about to crop up if I didn't put the audio sources in the mixer. So I did that, and now we're good to go this Monday afternoon. And looking forward to talk to you. Just wanted to get this in because I think there's some very interesting stuff. And if you get a chance, call 240-363-7190. 240-363-7190. The question, this is the question I want to take all day, while I'm on, throughout the program is, should the Democrats hold primary debates? Should there be debates this fall? This fall and into the winter. Or should we agree with the DNC that Joe Biden should just be anointed the nominee because he is, he's the president, and presidents don't get challenged, and we take what we can get. And right now, that would be Joe Biden. So is that the right decision, given where Biden is in the poll numbers, given that he is being challenged? Is this what is best for the Democratic Party? Forget about what's best for us. Is the Democratic Party making a mistake? If the goal of the DNC, if the reason for the DNC's existence is merely to win elections, to get as many Democrats elected as possible, and in this case particularly Democrats elected to the presidency, is this a mistake to not allow the American people to see Joe Biden get challenged in debates? What do you think? 240-363-7190. And if you're wondering whether there will be debates, here's what Simone Sanders, former Bernie Sanders spokesperson, former Joe Biden advisor, has to say, now an MSNBC contributor.
Doing well. He's at 19%. Hasn't really gotten that much out there. I mean, it's
all right. So he's Morning Joe there is mentioning RFK Jr. Say, hey, look, he's at 19%. This is from last week on MSNBC, talking to Simone Sanders, looking quizzically, looking questioningly, looking dubiously at what Joe Scarborough has to say with respect to RFK Jr., the number one challenger in terms of the polls to Joe Biden.
And I'm starting to hear more and more talk about him. Are we going to actually have a challenge here?
I'm trying not to laugh, Joe. There's not going to be.
Can I stop you for a second?
Yes.
Do you know how many people said the same thing about Donald Trump in 2015 on this show?
Except
said
I will
the
note,
same exact thing.
Yes, because there was going to be a Republican primary. But I really think that the mealy-mouthed Democrats, as I like to call them, and some of my progressive friends who would like to live in a fantasy land, they need to come back to reality. Yeah. And the reality is this.
All right, let me just stop right there. So Simone Sanders, it sounds very dismissive, unpleasant in that little diatribe there. She refers to the mealy-mouthed Democrats. I guess they're ones who aren't just full-throated supporters of Joe Biden for re-election. Then there's her progressive friends who are living in a fantasy land. And it's insulting. No one likes to be called that. But what Sanders is saying here isn't dismissing the politics. She isn't saying you're crazy to be a progressive. You're crazy not to be a supporter of Joe Biden if you're a mealy-mouthed. What she's saying is, you ain't getting no debates. What she's saying is, Joe Biden will be the Democratic nominee without facing one primary debate challenge. Now, we could argue whether he will in fact be the nominee. RFK Jr.'s numbers aren't terrible at this point. I mean, they're probably better than anyone thought. And I can't believe that the Biden team is thrilled, or the DNC is thrilled with those numbers that RFK is pulling up. When you look at the polls the poll that came out today, I believe it was in today's paper, maybe it was yesterday, the Washington Post ABC poll has very bad news for Joe Biden. And I frankly was really surprised at how badly Joe Biden is doing right now. I was very surprised. I was under the misapprehension that Joe Biden was beating Trump, that he was not a shoo-in, but 75, 80% likely to get reelected, if not more. He's got the benefit of incumbency. Trump is very unpopular. I don't know how popular Trump's main opponent, DeSantis, is. There's also Nikki Haley in the mix. You look at the polls, and my question to you, should the Democrats hold primary debates? Or is this and I want you to answer that if you can, if you call me, 240-363-7190, from the perspective of winning the presidency. So the only question, it isn't whether we want Joe Biden to be reelected. It isn't whether you think, Trump is an existential threat to everything, so we have to do everything possible to defeat Trump. The question is holding a primary without any debates consistent with that goal? Is that the best way to minimize the likelihood of Trump's reelection? Is not having primaries. I'm very skeptical of that. I understand the appeal. Joe Biden he's 80. He is slowing down clearly. He has definitely not got that mental sharpness. At least it takes him a lot longer to get out his thoughts than it did in the past. Not that he was ever the brightest bulb in the drawer necessarily, but now it's really even more apparent. He's not glib the way he once kind of was glib. He's not popular. His policies are not what the American public want. Under those circumstances, is the DNC making a terrible mistake if their only goal is to win the presidency or keep the presidency in 2024, 2025? Is this a big mistake? I got to believe there's a very good chance it's a terrible, terrible blunder not to have debates if you want to have the best Democrat, the Democrat with the most likelihood of winning next year. I think you're making a big mistake. Now, if your goal is to shut down any progressive challenge, if your goal is to ensure that the mealy-mouthed Democrats, as Simone Sanders refers to them, if your goal is to ensure that progressives just have to take a back seat, no matter how much it pisses them off, it pisses us off, well, maybe you're doing the right thing. But is it the right thing to do if you want to win, if you want to keep the White House?
The sitting president of the United States of America is a Democrat that would like to run for re-election, so much so that he has declared a re-election campaign. Right. In that case, the Democratic National Committee will not facilitate a primary process. There will be no debate stage for Bobby Kennedy, Marianne Williamson, or anyone else to stand on.
So we're going to have another Bobby Kennedy in an empty chair in the debate, right?
There will be no debate.
Yeah, no debate.
The Democratic National Committee administers the debates, and they're not going to set up a primary process for debates for someone to challenge the head of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the point that Simone Sanders makes, and I think it's really it's inarguable. I mean, I think she's right on, and you may not be happy with it. I'm certainly not happy with it. But if you're a Biden supporter, if you think Joe Biden should be the nominee, if you think Joe Biden should be the nominee because you want the Democrats to win, you don't want Donald Trump to get within sniffing, to ever get close to the White House again. Are you confident that Joe Biden is the best candidate right now? Because that's what the decision by the DNC is designed to do, is to make sure Joe Biden is the nominee, that he doesn't face a challenger who makes him look bad and might ultimately defeat him. Now, the theory, I guess, I mean, if you want to give the DNC credit and you don't want to view them cynically, then their attitude will be, we want to just focus on Trump. It's all about Trump, or maybe DeSantis. We'll look at the polls. That we can't, we don't want to take any hits before we go into the general election campaign cycle. We want to rally around the president. And that strategy made sense when it was President Obama, who was broadly popular among Democrats and still had residual support among a pretty decent chunk of the white working class. I think he went from 40% to 36% in terms of support from the white working class, which was certainly sufficient for him to win majorities in both 2008 and 2012. Hillary Clinton lost, I think she was down around 30% of the white working class. That wasn't good enough. Obama, at the time of his re-election campaign commencement in 2011, was the only Democrat clearly who had any chance of winning the primaries. Bernie thought about running against him. I might have liked it if Bernie had. Bernie wasn't going to beat him. That's just not something we can say with any certainty now. In other words, that the current president, the incumbent, couldn't lose in the primary. He could. Joe Biden could lose to RFK Jr. Heck, he could lose to Marianne Williamson. Under those circumstances, is this good strategy by the DNC not to hold primary debates? I don't see how it is. I can't. Biden is not a strong, powerful campaigner. He is somebody who won the presidency because people were sick of Donald Trump. People were sick of the drama. The media was all in for Biden. Trump is clearly a bit of a clown, to say the least. And Biden kind of seemed to be the adult in the room. So Biden won. But now Biden is 80. Biden is slowing down, as I mentioned. Biden is not popular. His policies are not popular. He has not kept his campaign promises. Young voters have abandoned him altogether. So under those circumstances, is it sensible for the DNC to simply say, he's our guy, that's it, don't even think about a primary debate, don't even think about, the possibility that an RFK Jr. or a Marianne Williamson could be so impressive that they could win? It's not going to happen because we're not going to let it. Well, if you want to win the White House again, if you want to keep it, if you want to keep Trump out of it, doesn't it kind of make sense at this point, if you've got an unpopular incumbent, doesn't it make sense to at least cover your bets a little bit to see whether there might be a better option out there? I mean, it sure seems like that to me. I don't get I do get it. But if your goal is what it should be, if you're the DNC, if your goal is to win, then the question would be, why don't you have primary debates? And I think the answer has to be because your goal isn't just to win. Your goal is not to have an RFK Jr. or a Marianne Williamson as president. Your goal is to have Donald Trump reelected, or maybe Ron DeSantis, rather than someone who is fairly to the left. Maybe not Bernie left, but pretty far to the left, an environmentalist, in terms of pretty far to the left as far as the United States political entity goes. And under those circumstances, I think it does make perfect sense that, as Simone Sanders says, there ain't going to be no debate because we don't want anyone who's more progressive than Joe Biden to become president. And if Joe Biden can't beat Donald Trump, so be it. If he can't beat Ron DeSantis, so be it. Can he beat them? Can Joe Biden beat them? Yeah, he can beat them. But of course, that shouldn't be the question. The question should be, can they beat him? And if they can, why aren't we considering another option? And I think that's pretty important. So if you have a thought on whether the DNC is correct in rejecting the notion out of hand that there might be debates in the primary, the Democratic primary. If you think if it's the right call or the wrong call from the perspective of defeating Trump, call me, 240-363-7190, and let me know why you think they are making that decision. If you don't think this is in the best interest of the Democratic Party, the interest of the party being defined as winning the presidency in 2024, if you don't believe no primary debates are in the best interest of the party, let me know why you think then the DNC has made this decision. If you look at the polling, it's clear right now that Biden is anything but a shoo-in. The latest poll from a very highly regarded pollster, ABC News Washington Post, has Trump up by 6 points. Econ YouGov, tie. Harvard Harris, Trump by 5. I don't know how that jibes with this notion that we're not going to have debates. That as Simone Sanders showed, she's laughing. And I don't think she's laughing at the idea that there should be debates. I think she's laughing at the idea that anyone might think there would be debates. As she said, the president of the United States is a Democrat. He wants to be reelected. He's going to run. Under those circumstances, there aren't going to be debates. I'm sure she's right. But is it right for the Democrats to do this? Is it right from the standpoint of winning? Is it right from the standpoint of the American public? And I got to say, it's a terrible, terrible decision. Look at these numbers here for DeSantis. He's not doing half bad either. He's ahead of Biden in several polls as well. So if DeSantis and Trump are both at worst from their perspective tied with Biden, and I would say it looks like DeSantis is close. The latest poll has him up by the same as Trump was, 6. But then you look at the Econ YouGov poll, Emerson, et cetera. It's a little closer. So it appears right now, at least, that Trump is a stronger candidate against Biden. It's also the case from all the Republican primary polling that I've seen that Trump has got a big lead. So, I mean, if you want to beat Trump, right? If you're any blue will do Democrat, if you're contemptuous of the Bernie bros, if you want to call us that or whatever, because we criticized Hillary and we didn't understand how important it was to defeat Trump. Well, if you look at who's running for president right now on the Democratic side, you got to be very, very worried that the DNC is stacking the deck in favor of a guy who's not going to win. They're stacking, and if it's true that Biden could go down, there's a pretty good chance he will go down. If that is the case, then why wouldn't you put a debate schedule together for the primaries in the hope that either Biden outperforms expectations, looks good, and is able to, kind of silence the concerns, the critics, or alternatively, demonstrate that there's a stronger candidate who has a better chance of beating Trump. This is not academic stuff. This is really important. I had John call me the other day and he said, you didn't think it was so bad, that the choice between Clinton and Trump was so obvious. But for women and girls who can't get abortions now, then they thought, then for them it was obvious you had to vote for Hillary. And I get that. I get that argument. I think that, there's never just one issue that matters. There are many issues that matter. And I think Hillary was a very bad choice for a lot of reasons on a lot of issues. But if you care about your safety, if you care, for example, about gun control, if you care about sane laws to keep weapons of mass destruction out of the hands of dangerous people, then I think you gotta hope that the Democrats nominate a candidate who can win, who has, who's able to present a powerful, articulate case. And I am not persuaded right now that's Joe Biden. Are you? If you are, fine. Then maybe it does make sense to not have debates. Are you afraid that if there are debates, Biden will look bad and that will help Trump or DeSantis or maybe Nikki Haley? Is that your concern? Because I would say don't worry about that. Here's why. If Biden looks really bad in the debates against a Democrat, he ain't going to look good against Trump or DeSantis or Nikki Haley. Better we know in advance that he's not going to win. Better we know in advance that he's going to present poorly in front of a national audience. And then we have the opportunity to pick somebody who can beat the Republican, if indeed Biden presents as weakly as many of us fear he will. And why is this so important? Well, we just had another massacre in Texas. The ease with which people can purchase weapons is just terrifying in this country. And you can see it right there in Texas. 8 people killed in Allen, Texas, at a mall with an AR-15. This was on Saturday. And I was really interested in this particular story because the Herald, and that's where I got it from, the Monterey Herald, which I do subscribe to now, has been covered 2 stories involving gun violence, which I give them credit for. But let's just go through this real quick about how bad things are. So right now, mass killings have happened with staggering frequency in the U.S., with an average about 1 per week. That's like, 3 or more. It's not just with guns either. In Davis, California, where I have relatives on both my side and my wife's side going to school there, at University of Cal Davis, there was a serial killer who was stabbing people to death, was recently arrested. Biden has much better gun control policy ideas than the Republicans. He urged Congress to enact tighter restrictions on firearms and ammunition and noted that this is far too familiar for American people. We're suffering far too much from these murders. In contrast, the Republican governor of Texas has in the past loosened restrictions on gun ownership, eased them in response to mass killings. So we have a clear-cut difference between the Republicans and the Democrats on sane gun laws. If you want the possibility, and I don't know that we would get tighter gun laws. The Democrats didn't do much in the last cycle when they had the White House and Congress. But if you get a Republican president, there's going to be a lot of pressure to make it even easier for people to get mass weaponry. It's going to be even easier to kill people. So if you don't want that to happen, you got to hope. You got to hope that the Democrats nominate the strongest, most impressive candidate to go up against Trump or DeSantis or maybe Nikki Haley next year. Are you confident that's Joe Biden? 240-363-7190. Down 6 points in the latest poll to both DeSantis and Trump. Are you confident he's the strongest candidate? Republicans are on guns. Now, on some issues, I am not going to sit here and tell you how much worse Republicans are than Democrats. I think the Republicans, on balance, are not as bad when it comes to endless war with Russia, for example. I think on balance, at least with when Trump was in office, the Republicans weren't quite as bad on trade. Although we do really have Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush to blame for free trade. Since then, every president, except for Trump, and now to a slightly lesser degree, Biden, has been a free trader, which has devastated the heartland. When it comes to guns, Democrats do talk a better game, and they probably are a little bit better. So in Michigan, and I give the Herald credit because they juxtaposed the mass murder in Texas over the weekend in Allen with the eight murdered victims with an action in Michigan, legislative action to pass what's called a red flag law. And this is being pushed by the mother of a killer. Karen Kobelik's daughter, when she was 21, purchased weapons, or at least one weapon. Her mom said she's got mental illness. She called the police repeatedly. She said, "You've got to do something about this. My daughter poses a danger." And the police said, "Well, we can't do anything about it. Can't step on her Second Amendment right." And what happened? The daughter wound up murdering her boyfriend, her brother, I presume that's Kobelik's son, and herself, and then turned the gun on herself. So 3 people were dead. And it seems pretty clear, based on the way the story is written, that those deaths were the direct result of the failure of the Michigan authorities to investigate whether the gun wielder, whether she was in fact a danger who should not have any guns in her possession. And I mean, you know, that's the kind of story that just breaks your heart, right? I mean, it's just awful. It's just because we have really stupid, stupid. Are they really stupid? Is it because our electeds are stupid, or are they corrupt? Are they bought and paid for? What drives that? You know, what could be the factor that would cause somebody to just simply ignore the laws? You know, not ignore the possibility that if we had better gun laws, people who are now dead would be alive, and people who are gonna die wouldn't. What are they stupid? Are they corrupt? What's that about? All right, I think we've got Billy on the line. Let's see if we can get Billy. I'm going to unmute him. So, good morning, or I guess to you it is morning, Billy. How are you? It's nice to hear from you.
It's great to hear you, Hal. I love hearing you and seeing you on my big TV. It's great.
Thank you. How do you like the production values? You're always so harshly critical. I'm curious what you think.
I'm thinking excellent things at the moment.
Wow.
I'll get critical later.
No, you can get critical, and I shouldn't have said that. You know what? You are like Shade. You guys have been so helpful to me in the past with excellent advice, guidance, suggestions, and I appreciate that. I asked you the question somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but I do want your helpful hints for sure.
Well, I'm just starting to listen, so I really...
It's too early for you. I go on at 8 a.m., so you never... you
exactly.
I know. It's tough.
No, but this one you had later in the day, and so I made myself available to you.
Thank you.
You know, the whole gun thing is just, to me, it's just the most disgusting thing going on right now. The fact that legislators are more interested in money and votes from the NRA than the lives of our children. I just don't. I don't understand the fact that what are we supposed to believe for our grandchildren? If you have children and grandchildren, what the hell's the matter with you? How are you not realizing that it's getting worse every day? It's only getting more so. It's not getting less so. Am I right, Al? There are more of these things.
The Herald used the term staggeringly frequent. Every week, there's a mass murder event.
So how do you imagine it'll be in 20 years? We'll have more AR-15s, more crazy people, and more death. That's the plan? Just let it happen? I don't understand. I really don't get it.
Do you know, I was tying this discussion into the Democratic nominee, that it's important under these circumstances that the Democrats nominate the candidate who has the best chance to win next year.
We can't let the Republicans win. They won't allow the next election to occur. They literally have given up on the concept of democracy over the Republican Party.
I'm not quite as, I don't know, I don't view the Republicans to quite the same degree as that much worse than the Democrats. Let's put it that way. I do think the Republicans are an existential threat, but I think the Democrats are largely as well. This is my question. And I started the program talking about how the DNC has announced there will be no debates. Joe Biden right now is 6 points behind. Okay, Joe Biden is 6 points behind Donald Trump in the latest poll. And that poll is from the Washington Post ABC. He's also behind, Biden is behind both Trump and DeSantis in the Harvard-Harris poll as well. So I was surprised, Billy. I really was. I thought Trump was going to be behind Biden. I thought Biden was not a shoo-in, but I really saw Biden as likely to be reelected. Now the numbers don't suggest that. This is
I don't see why you would believe that, Hal. I think Biden's done a good job, and I think he's looked very bad doing it. He looks old. He is not up to handling China for the next 6 years. That's crazy. And America sees that. It's really important that we don't let the repugnant ones win.
So does that mean, to your way of thinking?
While I feel that the Democrats are a disappointment, I feel like the Republicans are the most dangerous thing on the planet.
And this is my question. That's fine. Let's assume that your only goal, just as I assume the DNC's only goal is to defeat the Republicans next year in the presidential election. Should Democrats have primary debates?
Absolutely. Well, I'm of two minds on this. On the one hand, you know what? Debate skill has nothing to do with being president. A president never debates another president or anything else going forward. So it's just a weirdness about preparing to be president. But that's what do we have? As far as I'm concerned, what I look for, someone who wants to be president is, who does he hire to run his campaign? Who does he hang out with? Because that's what a president is. He's a figurehead. It's about him hiring the best people to do the best job, not about debating. But on the other hand, to say you're not going to debate, it's been a tradition forever. And it strikes
Billy,
let me.
I'm not sure that's true necessarily for primaries. When you have an incumbent, they often don't debate. Often they don't face a challenge, right? So Obama did not face a challenge in 2012, and therefore he did not have a debate. Trump didn't debate with any Republicans in 2020. So, if there's the incumbents do everything possible to avoid debates. My fear is this. Biden's approval numbers are in the 30s right now. Both Republican the two top Republicans have better numbers than he does, which really that's what surprised me, Billy. That is what I really was surprised when I saw that. If Biden cannot perform admirably in debates against Williamson and RFK Jr., then I fear he would look awful in the debates against whoever the Republican is and likely lose. So let's find out if he can do it.
Why would he even debate the Republican? Why not refuse to debate at all?
Because that would look really bad. That would be that would look terrible, and it would really raise huge questions about his ability to continue to be president in his 80s, well into his 80s.
Well, the questions have been raised. The fact is that we shouldn't have presidents well into their 80s in most situations. It would be the rare man who hasn't lost a step in his 80s.
I'm with you there too, Billy, but you yourself have said that if he's the nominee, you're voting for him.
Well, given the choice between any Republican, I will always vote against Republicanism. That's just modern Republicanism is an insane, group of people who consist of Marjorie Taylor Greene, Jim, whatever his name is, and the liar Santos. Really, how can we possibly vote for people who choose to be part of that?
I here's the problem I have with those arguments: is the Democrats they're just so bad too. They're so corrupt, and I mean, in some ways, I'm like, well, the Republicans may be crazy, but they may be so crazy that some of them believe what they say. The Democrats don't believe many of the policies that they pursue, and I find that very, very
the Democrats
worrisome.
are better than the Republicans. I'll make this easy for you. They don't talk about thoughts and prayers. I just heard a Republican guy in Texas tell me how committed he was to prayer. I almost threw up. He was committed to prayer. Where's prayer gotten us so far? And isn't that the only thing we get out of Republicans?
Billy, I think every
while our kids are being murdered,
Billy, every
Democrats will give you a weapons ban. You won't get that from Republicans. That alone makes it a pretty simple vote.
I think that's an important issue. I agree with you there. I just want to make this point. The
It's
Democrats,
not an important issue. It's our kids' lives.
it's a really important issue.
Just call it an issue.
Lots of issues involve lives, whether we're in endless war with Russia or in Afghanistan, which the Democrats promoted. That also costs lives.
How many of our kids have died because of the war with Russia? How many of my children have died? None.
Well, but hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians have died. And we're closer to a nuclear war. And people's lives were ruined because of the endless wars in the Middle East. And we're less safe as a direct result of those. So I think those are very important issues. And I would just also note, Billy, just to irritate you, because I know this will irritate you, every single Democrat voted to condemn socialism, say we're not a socialist country. It's like they had the time to vote on that. And every single Democrat voted for Hakeem Jeffries to be the minority leader in the House, even though his two top contributors are the financial services industry and a group you probably don't have the same problems with that I do, and that's APAC.
Well, maybe he can do what Willie Nelson does. I'm sorry, Willie Brown. And Willie Brown says, if you can't take their money, sleep with their women, and still vote against them, what kind of politician are you?
Didn't Willie Brown, he's responsible for Kamala Harris. I don't want to give him too, apparently she slept with him relatively early in her career.
No, the voters, that's, when you use Republican talking points.
Oh, you're saying that didn't happen?
I think that I voted for Kamala Harris. That's how she became the Attorney General, because people voted for her and because someone chose her to be the Vice President. I am not interested in who people sleep with. Maybe you are, but that's not my interest.
Okay. Billy, great to hear from you. Know what? The fact that you called is making me inclined to consider moving my program back a couple of hours, but I probably won't.
You should.
Because I like to do it in the morning. I prefer mornings. But I also prefer to hear from you. So it's a toss-up.
Well, it's great to hear your voice.
Great to hear you sound. One thing.
You emphatically.
we get old looking, but our voices stay the same. I don't think there's any difference.
We do. We sound great. You and I.
You sound great. I don't notice any. No, he's so cool. He's slowed down. He's really slowed down.
Slow.
It's not good. And I'll just say this.
So,
I think Bernie's too old too. I think
with?
Bernie's too old also. I don't.
Yeah, Bernie's too old too.
He's too old.
He calls himself a socialist.
He's
too old. You can't
old.
call yourself a socialist in this country.
There's no Democrat that I like. There's not one. There's not one. Nope. Not a one.
All right, we're in trouble.
You take care, man. We'll talk soon. Take care.
All right, buddy.
All right, great to hear from Billy Sunshine in wonderful Capitola, California. I miss the coast. I always say I miss this. You know what I miss? I miss those sea lions. I love those barking sea lions. They are very, very cool. All right, we're just about, I'm going to just about call it a program. I do want to thank Billy for calling. I want more folks to call. Yes, we do need, really, no. Look, I am not a Democratic apologist. I am not an any blue will do guy whatsoever. What I'm saying now is that, and I want to see people go to the Green Party. I want to see more and more folks vote for Green Party candidates. But what I'm saying right now is what we're going to very, very likely see, almost certainly the next president will come from either the Democratic or the Republican Party. And I would prefer that it be a Democrat whom I like, or at least can tolerate. And I can barely tolerate, but I guess I can tolerate Joe Biden. I will, I voted for him. I wasn't happy about it, but I did. What I want to see is I want to see the debates. I want to see real competition so we can find out, is Joe Biden in a position where he is, sharp enough, quick enough? Will he be able to parry the thrusts of his opponent in the Democratic primary and therefore give us confidence he can do the same in the general? I'll be back tomorrow. Have a great afternoon.